I'm understanding from Spencer Petras that the goal is for the offense to be improved a little bit each week. So I'm predicting 10 points, one touchdown, one field goal for Iowa football. I guess that's what we're going for here against Nevada in week 3. We got, of course, Corey Brad on the line from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Please join Corey's work again from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Most of you have. For those of you who have not, that's your place to go for Iowa football coverage, as well as right here at the Voice of College Football and our weekly Iowa show with Corey. Corey, how you doing today?
Good, Mark. Well, considering the circumstances, I'm okay. So if I was not able to score 30, you said 13? Or no, you said
I
10.
went for 10. I figured that we'll tack on a field goal this week.
Well, let's remember that Incarnate Word went into Reno this
Yeah.
past weekend and put up 55 on them. So, listen, if
I
they
didn't
can't
know
get
that.
past 10 against Nevada at home, but man, I'm not very confident. I mean, the line right now, I believe, is 20.5. That's the line.
You know what I'm checking right now? I want to see what South Dakota State scored this past week. Have we
I
checked
you know
that?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I'd love to know what South Dakota
Or
State
what
scored
was scored
them.
against them? What was
Yeah, I am curious on that. And I know most people we got a lot to talk about. We're gonna get to we got a Duke Rittenhouse, who is our Nevada guest, who is a tremendous media personality to kind of give us an idea of where the Wolfpack stand. He'll be joining us in about a half hour. But I know people want to talk about Kirk Ferentz's press conference today. And Mark, I'm to the point where I don't know whether to laugh, to cry. I really don't. I'm very. You probably saw I posted some content. I've posted content like every day now, and posted a video on Sunday. I'm very concerned. I'm just very concerned in general. It's not just about this game. It's not about this season. I'm very concerned with the trajectory of Iowa football. And people can say that's pushing the panic button way too soon. I've never said that in my life, Mark. Not even in 2012 when they went 4-8. This is a different set of circumstances with Brian Ferentz at the helm. I don't know how this ship is turned around. And each time that the media or the fans speak out, which basically they're speaking out every day on social media and at the games, they're booing. They booed every single opportunity they've had. I mean, they booed almost all of the South Dakota State game and then much of the Iowa State game. Every time that the fans make it clear that they want a change at quarterback, Kirk Ferentz drives those heels in deeper and deeper. And today he was asked whether or not his staff is in agreement in keeping Spencer Petras the starter, and he wouldn't answer that, which I understand to some extent. Those are personal conversations, but he did say that we as a whole are supportive of Spencer Petras. I do want to play a segment of that press conference if we could, Mark, and courtesy to the University of Iowa. This is, of course, video owned by the University of Iowa and their athletic department. But Chad Leistico of the Des Moines Register, who, look, I mean, I don't think the Iowa media is necessarily known for asking tough questions, but I will give Chad Leistico credit today for asking this question. And I have nothing against Chad, but this was not a softball. He basically confronted him on the production of Spencer Petras, because you knew the first question out of the media's mouth was going to be, who's the quarterback moving forward against Nevada? Kirk Ferentz basically responded and said it's going to be Spencer. He's earned it. His body of work. What were the other words that he used? He said he's put together a good resume. All these little things that I love hearing that don't make any sense, but that's what was said. And so Chad Leistico approached him on this quote unquote resume. So I'll see if I can share my screen here for anybody who missed the press conference with Kirk Ferentz.
Taken away the Northwestern game, which obviously Spencer couldn't go in. The point totals in his last 6 starts are 7, 7, 3, 17, 7, and 7. How does that body of work?
Give it to me again. Taking away which?
Northwestern, which he
right.
He played like a couple series. 7, 7, 3, 17, 7, 7. Those are your point totals.
What was the bowl game score?
This is 2017. So say 17. That was the 17. That had 3 picks. So I'm just saying, what you say the body of work is there, but that's the body of work. 1 TD, 9 interceptions the last 10 games, whatever it is. And then there's Alex, 27 against Minnesota, 33 against Illinois. How does that?
That's our assessment. Yeah, that's our assessment. And those are good points. But we're looking at the whole thing, and that's our assessment right now.
So I guess that's enough. Mark, I honestly watching that, and I watched it live, and I'm watching it now. I've watched that segment like 3 times, and I'm serious. I've never felt the way I feel right now about this program. I just, to me, what we got out of Kirk Ferentz, and it was a very much a valid point made by Chad Leistikow, that how can you say the body of work is good when the last 10 games he's went one touchdown and 10 picks, and he read the point totals, and I didn't even realize, and credit to Chad, I didn't even realize the point totals were that ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. And he brought up Alex Padilla. I mean, his numbers against Northwestern and Minnesota, the stats for Alex Padilla were not great, but the point totals were respectable. When I look at Kirk Ferentz, being approached by that question, and it shouldn't have blindsided the guy. I mean, he knew that was coming. I just don't see any answer from Kirk. I don't want to say deer in the headlights, but there's no answer. There's no explanation. And the answer was, well, that's our assessment. What's your assessment? What's the assessment? You're saying that the body of work proves that we've assessed the body of work, and Spencer's body of work outweighs Alex's. He did bring up at one point, and we didn't catch that clip, Mark, but he brought up at one point during the press conference, he brought up 2020 and how, we started that season 0-2, and Spencer led us to like 10 straight victories from then on. So let me just sum up all of the issues in one sentence, Mark. Way too much credit is given to the Iowa quarterback, whoever it is, when they win. And that's been the case throughout Kirk's tenure here. And I think he struggles with the concept of evaluating positions and units exclusively. And so when you say, well, Spencer's led us to 10 straight victories from the third game in 2020 into early 2021. No, he hasn't, Mark. You and I both know that's true. Okay. We know it. It's been stated by people everywhere, not just people who are, I call myself a self-proclaimed expert. Don Patterson has said this over and over and over and over again, that way too much credit goes to quarterbacks when you win a game, and way too much blame goes to quarterbacks when they lose. And Kirk Ferentz has acknowledged that, but there seems to be this block in his mind that keeps that, he just that repetitive, well, we won 10 straight with him. We won 10 straight with him. And I don't know if it's also partially a fear of what Alex can do with his legs. And I mean, my goodness, if we're fearful of potential upside of a guy who's actually mobile. I mean, did you watch the game, Mark? I mean, you probably watched a good portion of the game on Saturday.
Yeah, I did.
It's an embarrassment, Mark. It's no longer, listen, we talked throughout all the offseason about this offense, and we pounded the transfer portal quarterback thing. We pounded, the quarterback coach thing. We talked about the offense being too hard to learn and all these different things. But now, I don't want to have one of those conversations anymore because, Mark, it's simply, put simply, it is an embarrassment. The offense is an absolute embarrassment. Have you looked at the numbers? There are 131 in total offense, and there's a huge gap between them and 130. That's how bad it is. I mean, I don't even know. Like I said, I'm to a point, when you get to a point with something where it's so ridiculous, it almost becomes funny. Like I literally was listening and reading stuff today after this press conference and laughing. Not because I actually think it's funny, because I don't have any other emotion. I don't know how else to react to this as a fan. I really don't. And I'm a fan, Mark. I don't know how else to interpret what's happening right now.
So to put numbers to what you just outlined, New Mexico State, who I believe lost to Minnesota in shutout fashion in the opener, I think 38-0. They are second to last in the nation in total offense, 231 yards per game. Iowa last at 158. So you see New Mexico State at 231, Colorado State at 232, Boston College at 233. So everyone else is at least at that basement floor of 230 and
Right.
above. And then, to your point, there's just a cataclysmic drop to Iowa. So not even the worst by a wide margin against what I would expect is going to be a capable, strong, solid Iowa State defense, and then a really good FCS opponent, but underline FCS opponent. And, you know, the only thing I can liken it to, and we tried to size this up, and we did accomplish sizing it up in so many different ways leading into this season when it was concerning leaving 2021 going into 2022. And now, to your point, it's ludicrous, it's laughable, it's so obvious and pathetic. Just this disclaimer that, well, we are winning at a certain clip, when I know that one particular show, we went through Spencer Petrus's performance throughout his entire career going back to 2020 and the team's performance. And if you were going to put a quarterback's, you're going to put the responsibility or the accountability of the performance of the quarterback and match it up against the win, and just looking at the wins, there was no, and certainly isn't now, of course, after these two games, there was at no time that the Iowa offense, and in particular Spencer Petras, was the reason why Iowa won any of those games. No. There were a few games where you could say this is an example of the offense at least supporting the defense, but the defense still won the game. The offense didn't get in the way. It was somewhat productive. It was okay. But no examples of the offense winning the game. And then certainly we've got a myriad of examples in which the Iowa defense and special teams completely won the game in spite of a lackluster offensive performance. And now it's just gotten to the point of, how can any defense, the greatest defenses of all time, overcome this?
Do you know how spoiled we are with this defense and with the special teams unit that they put out? They blocked, Mark, they put up, they forced 3 turnovers and 2 blocked punts, and they still lost. I mean, it does. You can't write a script like that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything like it?
No, I've never seen anything like this.
And let's recall too, they had 2 safeties in game 1. So they've had 2 safeties, 2 blocked punts, 3 turnovers forced, and they've scored a total of 14 points. I mean, it's unfathomable. I don't even understand how we're here in this situation. And I never thought it could be this bad, Mark. When we were talking during the offseason and we were both fearful that it was going to be as bad. Well, I don't even think we thought it was going to be as bad, because common sense would tell you that it would improve a little bit from 123 in the country, but it's worse. It's worse. And now we've had 2 games to look at it as a sample size.
The 2 scoring drives this season, as you well know, 5 yards to kick a field goal and 16 yards to score a touchdown. Those are the 2 scoring drives. And while the mathematical probabilities led us both to believe it can't get worse, it has to get better. There are too many inept, under-talented teams in college football to rank below Iowa, that they have to get better. You know what probably should have led us to the conclusion that it could be just as bad, if not worse, is that they lost the best center in the country. They lost arguably their best wide receiver and another productive player in Tyrone Tracy. So this is the result. And they added very little. And
they also, who did you bring up? Tyler Goodson. I mean, I don't think Tyler Goodson was some star last year. Certainly he struggled. Yeah. But I mean, he is a guy who they lost, who was once an all Big Ten running back.
Yeah.
And let's not forget too, they also lost, as much as I criticized Ken O'Keefe last year. But you could argue he was the only offensive mind left that was probably somewhat involved with play calling. Because, yeah, I mean, Kelton Copeland was a quarterback in college, and LeVar Woods, of course, is, he's a running back. But Brian and Kirk are not offensive minds, Mark. Kirk's a former linebacker who learned how to be a really good O-line coach. He learned from Joe Moore, one of the best there that has ever lived. But they don't have offensive minds, and that's the problem here. It's nothing personal against Brian. I said that on my show the other day. It's nothing personal against Brian. I think he'd be a really good O-line coach. I think he'd be a really good tight ends coach. I in no way think that he is unqualified to be a coach somewhere. But the problem is you have a couple of guys here who, and I feel bad for them to an extent, they don't know how to fix this. And until you get guys who know how to fix it, you've got minimal talent at quarterback in your room, obviously. Regardless of who plays, there's minimal talent there. Alex Padilla is not Bryce Young, okay? It's just there's minimal talent there. You have minimal talent at wide receivers, plus the little talent you do have has been hurt. And your offensive line's not playing like you would expect an Iowa offensive line to play. But let's be honest, it hasn't played well for 3 out of the last 4 years. They were awful on the interior in 2019. They were not good in 2021, as you know, and they're not good so far in 2022. Now, do you blame Chris Doyle's departure? Chris Doyle was around in 2019, and the offensive line was pretty darn bad on the interior. So I don't know. I mean, you can point to that. I've heard people point to that. I've had several people bring that up to me that, Chris Doyle leaving, and that may be part of it. George Barnett certainly ain't performing well as the offensive line coach right now. And I do want to address something because this has come up like 3 times over the past 2 days. And if you don't mind, I'm going to throw this up on the screen, Mark. So I appreciate the point from Brian. And I've heard several people, I had 2 people reach out to me about this today. He says, speaking to the transfer quarterback point, Tyler Kluver, who is does the Washed Up Walk-Ons podcast. I don't listen to it, but it's he's a former long snapper. You know who Tyler Kluver is, Mark. At the polecat play against Ohio State in 2017. He said that they tried to get a QB, but couldn't get one. I asked who, and he wouldn't share any names, so who the heck knows at this point? Okay, so I've had several people bring up to me the fact that they've heard certain people in the media, and I'm not even talking about Tyler Kluver, but certain people in the media bring up the fact that, well, the notion that Iowa did go after somebody in the portal, all right? And I reached out to somebody who I trust, and I'm not going to say the person's name because I was kind of asking. I wasn't asking him off the record, but I just wanted to confirm what are we even talking about here? Was this a real, or is this an offer? Did they actually pursue somebody? And this individual who will remain nameless fell back on the same thing that I had brought up to you, Mark. Well, I think it was in April? I'd have to go back in time. And that was the report from Sean Callahan of the Nebraska Rivals site that Iowa had contacted Adrian Martinez. And believe me, the individual who I contacted on this today, who again will remain nameless, I respect greatly the work he does. I believe he is a trustworthy source. He's a very, very trustworthy source on the beat. So he made it very clear that he trusts what Sean Callahan reported, that Iowa did contact Adrian Martinez. But Mark, we talked about that when that rumor was flying around back in April. It seemed it just seemed bizarre that the one quarterback you would contact would be Adrian Martinez. So I guess we can acknowledge the fact that it has been reported by somebody who's reputable in the media, Sean Callahan, that Iowa contacted Adrian Martinez. We know he went to Kansas State. His girlfriend was at Kansas State. So he left Nebraska and went to Kansas State. That is the only guy, according to this unnamed source that I spoke with, who again is reliable, that is the only guy that was in the portal that Iowa contacted. Okay, so now I wasn't, when that report initially was circling, making its rounds back in late spring, I really didn't think much of it. It was there and we talked about it briefly, but apparently that's true. That has been reported. So I guess I would trust that to be true. I guess nobody's ever going to be able to say for sure, right? But unless you get it out of Adrian Martinez or you get it out of Iowa, which you won't. So I think it's bizarre that he'd be the one guy you'd contact. But regardless, Mark, they did not make a concerted effort to go get a quarterback in the portal. Because if the only guy you contacted was Adrian Martinez, and you didn't contact the laundry list of quarterbacks that you and I have discussed in recent weeks, then you can't tell me you actually tried to get a transfer portal quarterback. Now, in further answer to Brian, whatever Tyler Kluver or whoever is reporting these other things, if they have more intel than that, so be it. I don't understand why a couple people who have stated this, that Iowa's gone after portal quarterbacks, why they're so afraid to say who they are. Like, I don't know why that's so secretive. And Brian's saying that he asked and he wouldn't get any names either. So I don't know why why is that a secret, Mark? Why does anybody feel the need to keep that on the down low if it's true?
And you're talking about the particular school keeping that on the down low.
No, I'm talking about
Are you
people.
talking about individuals?
I'm talking about people in the media keeping that on the down low.
Yeah, I don't know why that. As long as it's confirmed, as long as they know that it's a fact and they can confirm it.
Well,
I
I'm
don't,
just
I
telling
don't see
you,
any reasons.
and I would say I'm not ripping anybody. I didn't hear the individual. I didn't hear Tyler Kluver say this because I don't listen to his show, and I have not spoken with the media member who tweeted it several weeks ago. But I saw that tweet, and the tweet from the Iowa media member was Iowa did attempt to. They did go after 2 portal quarterbacks. That was a statement. It wasn't like, well, I heard this or I think they did. No, it was a statement. But there has never been anything outward about who those 2 quarterbacks were until I contacted the source today that told me, again, that Adrian Martinez was the only guy that they actually contacted who was in the portal.
So based on the lack of productivity at quarterback, based on how many quality quarterbacks were in the portal, why would Iowa stop at 2 quarterbacks? Why would there be anything special or significant about any 2 of those quarterbacks that were available that would only cause them to pursue 2? They obviously, if you're going to pursue 2, you're recognizing a need to upgrade a quarterback. There's like 30, I'm just throwing out a number, something in that range, 30 quarterbacks that are capable of at least competing with Spencer Petras, if not a definite upgrade. Why wouldn't that have just been a consistent pursuit throughout the offseason as opposed to 2? Why 2? Why whatever 2 they were? Why those 2?
And according to the source that I talked with this afternoon, Mark, the 2, and again, the only one that was in the portal that they contacted, according to this source, was Adrian Martinez. I was also told the second contact that they made was a guy who never actually entered the portal. They had talked to people close to this individual, but he never entered the portal, so they couldn't do anything about it. So there's that's what I was told are the 2 people, folks. Adrian Martinez and a guy who never actually entered the portal, but they'd contacted people close to him, which I guess is within the rules. That happens all the time. Now, this source also told me that part of the reason Iowa wasn't able to make any headway with Adrian was the girlfriend thing. And, Iowa would have had a hard time anyways because they didn't have NIL in place, any consistent system with NIL to offer to these players, which, again, who does that fall back on? It falls back on Kirk and the administration for not having that in place, if that's the case. So, again, I hope that answers the question. I'm just reporting what I've been told, or not even report. I'm just saying what I've been told because I can't say I'm reporting it because it's third-hand knowledge. But boy, I just can't imagine, Mark, if you actually evaluate your quarterback room and realize that you need an upgrade, the one guy you're going to contact during the offseason is Adrian Martinez. You're not going to contact Keaton. Like, Keaton Slovis went to Pitt. So was Keaton Slovis bought to go to Pitt, Mark? Do you believe that? Maybe he was. But Pitt?
Yeah, there might have been NIL opportunities there, sure.
Sure. Okay.
But on the surface, if you go down all the quarterbacks that switched teams, all of them were more accomplished than Spencer Petras. When I say all, I mean of the top 25. Like, we had a list we threw up there a few weeks ago, and there were in excess of 25 quarterbacks that have accomplished more in college football, statistically have been better quarterbacks than Spencer Petras, that switched teams. And many of them went to football programs that are no more accomplished than Iowa, and some less. Arizona State's in not a good position right now regarding their issues with the NCAA and with the number of players that they had leave because of that, but they were able to attract an Emory Jones.
Right.
Before we take a deeper
I was just gonna say, in
dive on this.
response to Don,
Yeah.
who says that he's tired of me blovicating about something I'm far from qualified to speak on. All I do is complain. Why are you here? Mark, are we putting a gun to anybody's head to keep them here and listen to our show?
I've not done that for a while.
Like,
So,
I appreciate people listening, but I mean, I'm repeating what I've been told. And you and I both speak our opinions. We both tell it like it is. I'm not going to function off some sort of an agenda. I had somebody the other day tell me that I needed to how am I going to build attention, and how am I going to build hype for the Iowa program by being so critical? My job is neither of our jobs is to build hype for the program and promote the program. That's what the university is for.
Yeah.
And some media members. It's
and
not our job to do that.
And we also state if we don't know, if we don't have the information, or there's not a clear, decisive, best way.
Mark, and I'm willing to admit that apparently I was wrong about the fact that Iowa didn't contact anybody, because apparently, according to multiple sources now, they contacted Adrian Martinez. That's out there. So I guess I was wrong. No, they contacted Adrian Martinez, but now I'm going to be critical of the fact that they only contacted Adrian Martinez. So I guess I'll move the needle.
Before we get any further, we want to thank the fine folks at Jean Arthur Associates. You can get an instant quote there at Jean Arthur Associates Insurance for all your insurance needs. Keep this in mind, folks. You want to save some money, of course. Why not give it a shot? Go to www.jaainsurance.com. You get your instant quote right there on home, auto, motorcycle, boat, RV. I could keep going endlessly. The insurance packages that they have available, health, dental, and otherwise, it's all covered. Contact Jean Arthur Associates. Again, the link I'm going to drop in the live chat. It's also in the description section of all the videos we've got here at the Voice of College Football, Iowa. So you can go right there, get your instant quote. Why wouldn't you save yourself some money on insurance? And at the same time, know that they're helping through their various donations, families in need as well. So you can both benefit families in need, children in need, and also improve your insurance situation there. www.jaainsurance.com.
Mark, I think we've got our Nevada guest ready. Are we good to bring him on?
Absolutely.
But yes, in response to the news conference today from Kirk, I really don't know what to say. Mark, do you have anything else that you took away from Saturday's game other than just being dumbfounded by how bad the offense is and how good the defense and special teams units are?
It's a miracle if there's not some level of dissension in that locker room, offense to defense.
Well, that was my concern. I brought that up to Don Patterson on Saturday. I'm concerned that are there going to start being resentment somewhere? And I hope not. This team seems to have really strong leadership, especially in that defensive unit. But you do wonder if there's some resentment forming if things don't get better. I do think we have our Nevada guest on. I believe we've got Duke Rittenhouse on the phone. Duke, can you hear me? We can hear you loud and clear. Mark, are you good on your end?
I cannot hear Duke.
You cannot hear Duke. Let me see what we got here. Try it again, Duke. Can you hear Mark?
I cannot hear Duke. If everybody else can hear him, let's not belabor the situation here. Technically, if everybody can hear Duke and you can, then you guys can break this down. But I cannot.
Okay, looks like people in the chat are having problems hearing you as well, Duke. So let me let's see what the issue here is, because I am not sure what the problem is. Duke, let me give you a call back here in a minute. Let me see if I can fix this issue.
Okay, Corey, while you're looking at that, Lemansky's got a super chat contribution. Appreciate that, Lemansky. Thank you so much for that. The fans, at a minimum, Need the quarterback coach title stripped from Brian Ferentz and Bud Meyer named quarterback coach. That shows the fans are being listened to. I don't necessarily know that Kirk should be making moves based on fan complaining and so forth. The fans should be heard, of course, but it should be more based on the inability of guys to get the job done. Should be what's moving the needle here. The best way that I've figured out, and I am not the master of analogies to explain this situation for all the people that I've had, that we've had here on this show, but I've also had on the main channel when I've had people defend Iowa's track record. Yes, the wins and losses are what they are. They were enough to get this team to a Big Ten championship game last year and have one of the top 10 or 15 records in the nation over the last 3 seasons. But if you're running a company, and let's say you've got an accounting department, you've got a technology department, you've got a sales department, and 2 of the 3 are exceptional, elite, the very best at what they do, and you have one that is just a complete disaster, would you not address that? If the technology group is awful and you've got computers breaking down every 3 seconds and the other departments cannot address their jobs, they cannot do their jobs because the technology is so bad, or everything is a well-oiled machine but the accounting is a mess and everything's wrong, then that's an issue. Or if the sales department can't sell your product, then you could be making the best product in the world, but nobody's buying it because the sales department's not doing its job. The offensive, nobody expects this offense to be at prolific levels, just competent, capable, just 20 points a game. And which in today's college football is anemic. But man, when you figure that this team didn't play Georgia either one of these 2 weeks, or Alabama or Clemson, I don't know what that would look like to see this Iowa offense face one of the elite defenses in the country. And we may see it a little bit later to a certain extent. Michigan's coming up. I'm not going to put Michigan's defense on the level of the teams that I just mentioned, but Michigan, Wisconsin is on its way. Minnesota. And we're seeing this against Iowa State. Decent team, good team, strong team, solid defense. And we saw it against an FCS team. It's just inconceivable how bad that the defense has been. Corey has obviously dropped off to try to remedy the phone situation with our guest from Nevada. The Wolfpack visit Iowa, and the Hawkeyes, of course, 7 points on the scoreboard the first 2 weeks of the season. Lemansky, thanks so much for the super chat. Let's see what we also have coming in from everyone here. Captain, good call on that one. Yes, Nebraska, just a sales department. And we saw what could be the Big Ten Western Division this season. We saw it in week 2, where Iowa should have a huge opportunity to take advantage of what could be a weak division. Northwestern, sure, that was a big win against Nebraska. They felt good about themselves, but they gave up all sorts of rushing yardage, 6.5 yards per clip against Duke, and lost at home as a 10.5 point favorite against Duke. Wisconsin blew all sorts of opportunities and lost to Washington State. Washington State is no world beater. Credit to them to going to Camp Randall and winning that game, but Wisconsin loses a game that I heard this stat, Corey. Wisconsin entered that game against Washington State 78-0 when they produce at least 400 yards of total offense. And Iowa fans, yes, there are teams out there that can produce over 400 yards of total offense, but Wisconsin was 78-0 when producing at least 400 yards of total offense and giving up less than 300. They did that against Washington State, but too many turnovers, one with about 5 minutes left to go by the tight end in the red zone. And Wisconsin, a 17-point favorite, loses. And then the other trip up was, of course, Nebraska against Georgia Southern. So not a good look for the Big Ten Western Division on Saturday.
And Mark, who's the quarterback for Washington State?
Yes, Mr. Cameron Ward.
Transfer portal.
Who went to Camp Randall and led a win.
All right, let's see if we can get this thing to work here. If not, we're going to throw Duke in with the StreamYard link. Duke, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, Mark can hear you. Perfect. Well, I don't know what I did there, but we got it to work. So we got Duke Rittenhouse on the phone. And Duke, of course, you've been around the Nevada program for many years, and you've seen a changed coaching staff during this past offseason with Jay Norvell moving on to Colorado State, who, by the way, is the second worst in all the FBS in total offense, ironically enough. But we're talking about Iowa and Nevada this weekend. Before we get to that matchup, Duke, talk a little bit about what went wrong this past weekend, the Wolfpack giving up 55 to Incarnate Word.
Yeah, what went wrong? Yeah, how long do you guys have? It was a disaster. I don't think they took them lightly. I'll say that. They got, that Lindsey Scott might be the best quarterback they face all year. He's actually pretty good. And so they had a 17-3 lead and let the visiting team score 35 in a row. And I don't know if it's a product of new staff, a ton of new players. They kind of got pushed around, which is, bad news heading into the Midwest to play against a Big Ten team. It was just a disaster. The quarterbacks were, quarterback this time, it was just Nate Cox. Reasonably effective, but not great. The secondary, which was supposed to be the strength of the team, gave up, I don't even remember. I think it was 22 yards of completion to a 1AA team or FCS team. And I could kind of keep rolling with the stats, but it was an unimpressive, uninspired performance, and Ken Wilson would have been the first Nevada coach to ever start 3-0, and that's done. So they just laid an egg out there.
And of the three games, and I know Incarnate Word was decent last year behind Cam Ward, who's now an FBS Power 5 quarterback. But when you look at the schedule, I think most people would have predicted either of the other two games to be potential losses. I know New Mexico State wasn't very good either, but we're talking about two FBS teams that Nevada beat rather comfortably.
Yeah, well, exactly. And, we all do schedule stories during the off season, and, you look at it and you go, okay, New Mexico State's dangerous. It's on the road. It's Ken Wilson's first game as Nevada coach. Yeah, right. I mean, that could be a disaster. That could be 0-1. Texas State was a little bit of an unknown commodity, but everyone had the FCS team circled as the win. I mean, the goal really was to be a reasonable goal was to be 3-0, go into Iowa and see what happens. I mean, probably looking at a big loss, but that was the goal. This team's been to a bowl game 4 straight years, which is the longest current streak in the Mountain West. And it's in danger now. I mean, I look at the rest of the schedule and I'm not circling. Well, I mean, Hawaii is purely awful, but other than Hawaii, I'm not circling any wins. So, yeah, they dropped one they should have had. I mean, this should be 3-0. Frankly, this should be 3-0 versus 2-0.
And speaking of transfer portal quarterbacks, you guys have one down in Nevada, Nate Cox, who is, I believe, 6'9". Am I correct in saying that, Duke?
Yeah, he is. He might be one of the biggest people I've ever interviewed. He's a large human. He really is. And then Shane Illingworth, who's an Oklahoma State transfer, is all of 6'5". So I mean, these are kind of big guys. I mean, for whatever that's worth, they're big guys.
Mark, do you have anything for Duke?
Well, Duke, for a team that has made it a mainstay in the postseason, as you just mentioned, and Jay Norvell leaves for Colorado State, and he is responsible for the success on the field. Did he leave the cupboard that empty? What went wrong in regards to recruiting development to put the program in this place right now?
I know.
Yeah, a little bit of there's a little bit of that for sure. Timing, the actual timing of it was not beneficial for Nevada. Jay left before the bowl game, and Ken Wilson was hired. I believe it was December 7th of last year. So, Ken has to have his introductory press conference and more or less go out and start recruiting. And it's December. He's actually still employed by Oregon. He actually coached in Oregon's bowl game. It was just this kind of big mess. But a little bit also of what the first thing you said. 11 Wolfpack players followed Jay Norvell. They portaled over to Fort Collins. And other players left the program for various reasons. There was our 3 NFL players. There was people who graduated, and a couple who just aren't going to play football anymore. So the roster turnover was bigger than in previous seasons. So a little bit of each. I just think, when I talk about a postseason streak for Nevada, I'm not thinking they go 10-2 and they represent the Mountain West in the LA Bowl. I mean, we're thinking 6-6 would be fantastic, and go to the New Mexico Bowl or something. So, but yeah, no, Jay took 11 players, and if you follow Colorado State at all, that the only 2 people out who are doing anything out there are Clay Millen, the quarterback, and Torrey Horton, the receiver. And guess where they went to school last year? I mean, they were on Nevada's roster. So a little bit of each from what you said.
I know we've talked about this, Duke, but I think there's clearly some frustration amongst the Nevada fan base with how Jay left. You mentioned when he left, the number of players he took with him. Is there any, with the current regime now, is there any feel that this is going to take several years to rebuild into being what they were before? And that is one of the more consistent programs, not only in the Mountain West, but also a program that I think I read somewhere, Duke, that this is the least funded program in all the conference. Is that correct?
They're close. They've gone up. They're paying Ken Wilson a little bit more. Perennially underfunded. They don't get much money from the Nevada state legislature. I don't know if, I'd imagine like states like Iowa are more generous with the legislature looks at, state schools and is a little bit more generous. We've never done that out here. I don't know if it's kind of a, just a Nevada thing or whatever, but yeah, do more with less has always been a thing out here. And to answer your question, I think this year is a bit of a mulligan. I mean, Ken's fine. Ken could go 3-9, and that's fine. I mean, no one's going to pull any triggers off of that. I think though, all these coaches, maybe with the exception of a guy like, Kirk Ferentz, who has been, at Iowa for, 250 years, but maybe he's the exception, but for other coaches with NIL and the transfer portal, I think there's an expectation for quicker fixes. Like, hey, look, go to the portal, get a bunch of guys, and, we want you to be good next year or in year 3 and all that. So I think there's an expectation to play for Mountain West championships by, year 3, 4, 5, probably this year. I mean, this year's fine. And next year's probably a semi-mulligan. But I mean, and with social media and everything, I mean, the fan base, everyone wants to win like right now. And, they want their team to be the team. There's just no patience out there anymore. So I think, although Ken's a Nevada guy, you guys know he was an assistant here in the 20s, 23 years, I think it was. So he's got a little bit of rope, but I just think we live in a, what have you done for me lately type of world.
I'm curious to get obviously this is a game where there's no question Iowa should win. I mean, just purely based off talent and what Iowa's going to bring defensively. But I'll tell you, Duke, you told me off the air that you follow Iowa football almost as much as you follow Nevada football. First of all, I'm curious as to why that is.
Well, yeah, actually, I do follow the Iowa teams a little bit. Many years ago, in the 90s, I did the RAGBRAI, the bike ride.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was great. And Iowans, I think is how you say it. They were very friendly, and I read the Des Moines paper all the way through all 7 or 8 days I was there and all that. And I just kind of started following them a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say rabbit or anything, but kind of take an interest in them.
Well,
so that's
great.
probably it. That got me started on it.
I did 2 days of Ragbri, Duke, I think in 2017, and unfortunately, a friend of ours passed away, and it got me off the road. But in hindsight, I don't know that I would have lasted all 7 days. So you did all 7 days, river to river?
Yeah, it was great. I was in. I mean, I was younger. I was in a little bit better shape, but it was great. Like I said, the people were great. I mean, I didn't realize you can eat your way, across the entire state of Iowa. I mean, there's just so much food. It was unbelievable.
Mark has no idea what we're talking about.
No, I've never heard of this.
Ragbri is a bike ride across the state, and it attracts tens of thousands of people. So it's a great event in the summer. But okay, so I'm just last thing from you, Duke, and I do appreciate you briefly just hopping on with us and giving us some insight into Nevada. I think this is a game that certainly is Iowa's most winnable game left in the schedule. It's at home. It's against a team that just lost, and like I said, gave up almost 60 points to an FCS opponent. But Duke, you've watched Iowa so far. From an outside perspective, can you give us some objectivity here about what you think is the solution to Iowa's dreadful offense right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I will say that it looks like, you've got 11 guys out there, and they're going about 7 different speeds on a lot of different plays. The cliche, they don't all seem on every play to be on the same page. And I know that Petrus has become a tired subject for you guys. He doesn't seem to throw the ball right at people. I mean, everyone's like reaching down or reaching to the left, or he's throwing it over their heads or something like that. I mean, I want him to start hitting your guys in the numbers. I mean, just drill them right between the 8 and the 8. But so I'm not seeing that, and I don't know, is that his timing? Is it a mechanic? Is he in his own head? I don't know. It's a situation also where, I mean, everyone's a coach. We're all coaches, especially on Sunday and Monday, but the play calling I haven't been that inspired by a lot of the play calling. So I don't know, but here's the thing for you. If, Iowa could look great in an area that, like, it's hard to watch. Like if Iowa dominates on the lines, which they should, I think you're going to have just all this gaps, all these running room for your running backs. And I think Spencer will get a little more confidence. So, I mean, that to me is a key. If Iowa pushes the Nevada front around on either offense or defense, that's where that 23-point spread comes in, because they'll just wear them down. And, it could be 14-7 heading into the fourth, and Nevada will just be worn down is one way I can see this game going. And then you get your 30-7 final or something like that.
I'll tell you, Duke, I'm finding it hard to envision Iowa putting up 30 against anybody with this offense. But I'll say this too: if it's 14-7 heading into the fourth quarter, I mean, because this would be, let's be honest, this would be one of the worst losses in the history of Kirk Ferentz here at Iowa. That's not an exaggeration, and there have been some bad ones, but just with again, no disrespect to that Nevada program, but with everything you outlined, this being a rebuilding year, and the fact that they did just lose to an FCS opponent by giving up 55, I just think you let this team hang around, and boy, there's going to be some serious angst in the crowd if we're heading into the fourth quarter and it's a one-score game. But the problem is, I just don't know. You brought up with the offensive line. Iowa did not dominate the trenches against South Dakota State just 2 weeks ago. So that could be a problem. I mean, and you're right, it would be a terrible loss. I mean, you're absolutely right. This is not last year's Nevada team. I mean, this has been a great game last year. I mean, Carson Strong and all the players who left for CSU and all that. This would be, I would guess, about a 8 to 10 point spread, and maybe, with Iowa being at home, that maybe more like 12. But everyone would be like tailgating early and going to the stadium early. It would be a great game. But no, this year's Nevada team, no, it'd be a terrible loss. Yeah. Duke Rittenhouse, who has been covering Nevada athletics for probably about as long as I've been alive. Duke, I'm not trying to make you feel old, but we both do appreciate you being here, and best wishes moving forward. I know you've got some new ventures, new professional ventures ahead of you. So best wishes and thanks for calling in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Duke.
Duke Rittenhouse, the news editor at is it Nevada Apparel? Is that the new what's his new employer, Mark? I should have had that in front of me.
The Nevada Appeal.
Appeal. Why did I say apparel? Nevada Appeal.
No,
So he
wants some new clothes, I guess.
Yeah, maybe he's taking care of the uniforms at Nevada, but I don't know, Mark. I just don't know. I see things a couple different ways, and I had reported last night that Nico Reganey was going to be back, or at least he's available to be back this week, and that was confirmed by Kirk today. So that actually gave me the inkling that maybe Kirk would stick with Spencer because, he wants to see what Spencer can do with his receivers back. But do you really think you've watched Nico Reganey for the last 3 years. Do you think he's going to be a difference maker at wide receiver? I think he'll help.
No, he is good enough to play, of course. The receiver play is difficult to evaluate at this point, and it's also not much of a factor at this point because the ineptitude of the rest of the offense, the blocking in the running game and the pass protection, to Spencer Petrus's defense to a small extent, certainly in week 1, he was under siege more than he should be under against an FCS opponent, but they're not running the ball. Petrus, Duke outlined it right there, and I always have the same takeaway from watching Spencer Petrus throw the ball 20 or 25 times is that he's not an accurate quarterback. So the wide receiver play at Iowa is difficult to evaluate. There's just not much play there. And of course, to put salt in the wound, you know where I'm going to go with this one. Charlie Jones had another outstanding game, this time against Indiana State. 9 catches, 133, 3 touchdowns. So he has scored 4 touchdowns. So he is outscoring the Iowa offense by himself through 2 weeks, 4-1.
Didn't those numbers come in the first half, Mark? Didn't he have that stat line? He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you posted that on Twitter. Yeah, 9 for 133 in the first half. And then, bye-bye, because it was a 56-0 game eventually. Is
he good enough to play wide receiver in the NFL? I know it's early, Mark, but
he looks like you would know better than me in regards to his body size. He looks pretty small.
Yeah, well, so was Julian Edelman, so was Cole Beasley and
Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
All sorts of guys. Yeah. Sure.
How big is Cooper Kupp?
But that's Cooper Kupp's a pretty thick guy.
Yeah. I'll tell you, talk about if he ends up in the league, Mark, playing receiver in the league. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
No.
And I tell you, the Iowa offense, I know we're going to make some people mad now because I'm saying something else negative, but the Iowa offense underutilizing players, that's not a one-time thing, Mark. I mean,
we're going to put up a poll. What should be the over-under of total yards against Nevada? 300.
What should be the over-under for that game? I'd say
should be like 450 is what it should be.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to. I would probably say 250.
250.
Well, they've averaged 150, Mark.
Yeah,
they've averaged 150. Yeah. So I'm almost doubling their output by saying
against a really bad team.
Well, okay. You don't think South Dakota State's defense is,
When I asked about the demise of Nevada this season, and then I started to get the answer, this hits me a couple times a day where there's information out there that I know, I just forgot. As soon as he started to reveal that answer, I was like, oh yeah, I knew that. All right, folks, Hawkeyes Live brought to you by Gene Arthur Associates. You need insurance, and you may have it now, but wouldn't it be nice to pay less? So get your instant quote, football fans, Iowa fans. If you've got to sit through another, 150-yard offensive effort, you might as well pay less on your insurance. I guess let's look at it that way. So you'll also help families in need. And that's the great thing about partnering with Gene Arthur Associates. Go to I think I left out a W. You guys know the deal. JAAinsurance.com. www.jaainsurance.com. The link is in the description section of all the videos. I will leave it in the live chat as well for all your insurance needs, motorcycle, boat, RV included, health, dental, cyber bonds. It's all covered. Contact Gene Arthur Associates, and we appreciate them being here at the Voice of College Football, Iowa.
Mark, before we go, we should probably at least talk briefly about recruiting, because we really have not talked recruiting at all. Iowa did nab its 2024 quarterback, which is just, you look at the fact that he was there on Saturday at the Iowa State game, and for them to be able to actually land a mobile guy. And now I believe he's listed at 6'4", out of the Jacksonville area. And he's a guy who I'm trying to find his first name. I had it here. You'll find it, Mark. 2024 kid, 3/4-star recruit, mobile. You watch him on tape. He clearly has got speed. You probably don't want him growing anymore. I don't think you want a 6'5", 6'6" mobile quarterback, because you just naturally lose some of that mobility. But it was good for Iowa. I mean, bit of a silver lining there, despite the loss. Is it James Resar? Is it James? I think it's James. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I mean, he's a ways down the road. I know fans would, wish that he was here now, but he had some good offers. Wake Forest. Let's see who else is on his offer list. Iowa, Wake Forest, Indiana, and Georgia Tech, I think. So kind of a weird offer list, but he is, again, a Florida kid. Iowa's done pretty well down there recruiting wise. And I don't think we talked about this in recent weeks. Just over the last couple of weeks, Iowa missed out on Kendrick Gilbert, the 4-star defensive lineman who had Iowa in his top 4. They missed out on Jordan Allen, defensive lineman who had Iowa in his top 4. And they also missed out on one of the 2 twins from down in Louisville. I believe it was Caden Jenkins, committed to Oregon State, I believe. Baylor. Committed to Baylor. I'm doing this all off memory. I should have had this prepared, Mark, so I apologize. But so they've had some misses here since the season started on the recruiting trail. But it was nice to get their quarterback in 24. I think he was their number 1 target at that position. And for him to commit the day after the Iowa State game, maybe he looked at that and said, man, I could imagine what I could do, with this defense and special teams. To me, that's how you have to recruit. If you're Iowa, you have to say, look, we've got as stable as of a situation as possible with our special teams and defensive units. We just need help with this position. I think that's attractive. I think it's more, people look at it from a negative point of view, and nobody wants to come play for that offense. But hey, if you get a guy who's mobile, who's a playmaker, it's not going to take much to at least make this offense decent. And I mean, not much as far as recruiting. You land 1 or 2 guys, I think specifically at quarterback, and they need help at wide receiver. Those 2 positions are the biggest needs right now, I think. Offensive line has got to get better. We've talked about that, but they've got good recruits coming in the next 2 years, between Caden Proctor and Trevor Lauk and Cody Fox. They got a bunch of guys. So good win for Iowa to get Resar. Is it James Resar, Mark? Did you look it up?
James Resar, 6'4", 200 pounds, out of Jacksonville, Florida. 31st rated at his position, according to 247 Sports. 65th rated player in the state, number 395 overall, 3-star, according to 247 Sports. Can't find any numbers on him in regards to on the field.
Let me just say something to go away from Resar to finish this thing up, Mark. I miss Nate Stanley. And I never thought I'd say that. I never thought I would say that. I miss Nate Stanley. I don't know. I remember thinking at the time, like, hey, maybe Petrus can be better than Stanley. Stanley had his faults, but man, that guy was a warrior. And Iowa's offense was a lot better than, it wasn't great. It hasn't been good since Brian Ferentz. It hasn't been good in years. But It's funny, back in the 2012 to 2016 seasons, Mark, when Greg Davis was the OC here, people were always complaining about the horizontal passing and all this stuff. If you look at total offense, the rankings from the the end of the year rankings for each season, almost every year. And there were 1 or 2 years. I think 16, of course, was bad, and that was the year that Beathard was hurt, and I think Vandenberg broke his foot. But the offense was better under Greg Davis, and so sometimes you don't realize what you have until it's gone. And I think right now fans are, thinking back, man, wouldn't it be nice to have Nate Stanley or even Greg Davis as your OC?
Better, but never top 50 in the country.
It's top 50 in the country under Greg Davis a couple times.
Prior to 2006. The only reason I say that is because I produced a video and I went back to 2006 because that was the last time I found an Iowa offense in the top 50.
Yeah, I apologize. Under Ken O'Keefe. So they were, of course, 45 in 2001. They were 13 in 2002. They were 22 in 2005, 27 in 06. And so you're right. From then on, never a top 50 offense. They were 53 in 08, 57 in 2010.
So
Greg,
that was at least 4 seasons you cited where Iowa produced a top 10 to 25 to 30 offense in the nation. And now they're settling for 100th for year on end, over and over and over and over. It's just unfathomable to me that Kirk's not thinking about, this is a guy that, again, to our point about mobile quarterbacks and the threat that they are to a defense, that a coach who experienced it, who succeeded with it at a high level, a top 10 team, an Orange Bowl team, a co-Big Ten champion that doesn't embrace it later, and then who tolerates offensive ineptness after experiencing success like that early on.
Well, in the 3 years they were top, the 3 years they've been top, 30, 2002, 2005, 2007. What was the common theme with all 3 of those seasons, Mark? You're a college football historian.
What are the years?
5, 6.
Well, it's probably a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, you had Brad Banks and Drew Tate.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Drew Tate. He didn't always get along with Kirk, and Brad, I think probably made Kirk nervous with how he played. But man, Brad was a Heisman candidate in 02. So I've been saying this. We've said it for, what is this, September 13th, Mark? We've been saying it for the last year. Mobility, it would help. It would help right now. And my guess, Mark, just moving forward, looking at this from a micro level, if Spencer struggles against Nevada, I'll say this, I guess, every week. I would have to think they make a change heading into Rutgers. But I think you make the change now, because if Spencer has some big game against Nevada, what does that prove, Mark? Does it prove anything?
The only thing it would prove is if we looked at pass by pass comparisons between Petrus and Padilla to see that he, with a fairly clean pocket, is delivering the ball.
And one of our callers on Saturday during the postgame show reminded me of something that I think everybody forgets. We all look at Padilla's numbers from last year, and like the Minnesota game, like he had a terrible completion percentage, but they scored, I think, 30 points or whatever it was. People forget. And I don't know why this was. I mean, you could argue that he caught a less catchable ball, his spiral wasn't as tight, whatever you want to talk about. The Iowa receivers dropped catches at a much higher rate with Padilla than they did with Petrus last year. So it wasn't a matter of Padilla not being accurate or being off target. His receivers just dropped the ball a lot. So I don't, the argument that, well, Padilla's numbers were not even as good as Petrus' numbers. Technically, that may be true, but you factor in all the drops, you factor in mobility, and you just factor in the fact that the offense was more productive overall with Alex Padilla at the helm. The change needs to happen, but I just don't know. I mean, I don't have tons of confidence in anything right now. Every week that the change doesn't happen at that position makes me think more and more that Kirk is set on digging in his heels. And I hope not. I love Kirk Ferentz. I said that in my video Sunday, but I just see a lot of stubbornness and reluctance to change. I mean, heck, even Don Patterson made the comment, let's put a package in there for Joey Labus. He said that during our post-game show. If you just put a package in there, give him a few plays that he's ready to run during the game, and run him against Nevada and see what he can do. You don't need to throw him. I mean, when are you going to get a guy like that experience? Are you going to wait till a Michigan game? Are you going to wait till the shoe? Are we going to wait till, Wisconsin? I mean, this is the last chance they have, and we talked about how important it was to win in September. Mark, if you had to guess right now, will Iowa be over 500 by the end of the regular season?
I'm still putting my faith in yes, the entire team to get there.
So what's the record? Because I'm sure you're not going to still guess 8-4. You're guessing 7-5.
Well, if we're talking bowl eligibility, I know that you said winning records, so 6-6 is out.
Yeah.
But 6-6 would be my guess right now. I'd want to see the schedule again. But you know what? I dismissed your concern during the offseason when the Rutgers game was brought up. And now Rutgers, they played a really nice game against Boston College, pretty capable team.
And you did hear, that's the other piece of news we didn't bring up. You didn't hear this. That game has been announced as a night game in Piscataway. Now, why Fox wants that as a night game? I don't 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 Eastern, night game in Piscataway, Iowa, and Rutgers next week.
Well, again, Fox front loads its schedule with the bigger games. Their best games are at noon, and then even at 4 o'clock Eastern.
I prefer night games. The only night games I don't like are the games that end really late, and then you do a post game show until 1. But we were on. Did you realize how long the post game show was on Saturday?
I can only imagine, because I checked in a few times just to see the numbers. Not that I didn't want to hear what you guys had to say, but I'm trying to check in on everyone. And I know that they were big because they were big even on here, and I know that the numbers were not even close to what you got on your channel.
We were on for about 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Wow.
I don't want to do that every week, Mark, but man, we had
people,
like Don Patterson said, people care about Iowa football. And we had, I think, 350 people on while we were ending the show. So I appreciate all the support, but it just goes to show you it's going to take more for Iowa fans to become apathetic. Fans are still in the angry stage. Now, if they lose to Nevada, it's going to be worse. I think there's still room before we get to apathy. And I don't know when that comes, but boy, you better just take care of business against Nevada.
And again, if you're just going to focus on the brokenness of the offense, we should be at whatever the furthest stage is for the fan base. But if you're looking at it as a whole, then you can understand the continued loyalty and optimism and hopefulness, because this is a team that just won the Big Ten Western Division with a bad offense. Not this bad, but a bad offense. So I understand the trust that is given to this. I'm not going to say the coaching staff. I'll say some of the coaching staff, of course, Phil Parker in particular, and Kirk, and the stability of the winning track record.
And somebody wants me to bring up the cameos, so we can bring that up. I know that became viral last night. Did you see it, Mark? Did you see the Bob Stoops thing last night?
Oh, I heard about it. I did not see it.
So somebody, what Cameo is basically a service for celebrities to be able to record a personalized message, and you pay them.
I've got a Cameo.
Do you really? Okay. Well, somebody.
I didn't know anything about it. The only reason I got it was somebody contacted me, and the Cameo people. Anyway, they somehow found me. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so somebody.
I didn't know this existed.
Somebody, I think. I'm assuming that Bob Stoops was tricked into doing this, but maybe could we play it on here, Mark? Is that okay?
So that would be fine with me. That came from Cameo. Interesting. I just saw some trash talk about it and saw Stoops and just saw there was a video, and I'm not typically lured in by things like that.
I should probably share this because look, I guess this belongs to, I'm assuming it belongs to Cameo, but all right, let me let me share this for everybody that missed this. Now, again, Cameo is the service, if you don't know, where celebrities can record personalized messages for people. And I think Fran McCaffrey has one for charity. So when someone, pays him $50 for a, happy anniversary wish, that money would go to charity. So this is what broke yesterday. And at first, when I saw this, I actually fell for it because I'm thinking, did Bob Stoops just drop a bomb or was he actually tricked? So, well, I'll share my screen here.
Hello there, Brian. Bob Stoops here saying hi. And listen, I know you've had a tough couple of 2-3 years there, but the good news is your family still supports you, buddy, especially your dad. He wants you to know that. But and even though everyone else seems to be against you, sometimes the best advice is to break free from the family business, man. Go do what you got to do. So anyhow, all the best to you and a big boomer sooner and good luck. Hello there, Brian. Bob Stoops here saying hi. And listen,
Mark, you gotta admit that is brilliant.
It is brilliant.
So my question is, did Bob Stoops, do you think he was completely oblivious to it when he agreed to do that?
So the break free from the family business, I would have thought would have triggered something.
I would have thought so too. So I was talking with somebody about this last night, and somebody speculated that, is it possible that they, and I say they because Fran McCaffrey, Iowa men's basketball coach Fran McCaffrey, also was duped into doing one. But is it possible that they kind of knew what they were doing, but knew they could get away with it because it would give the illusion that they were duped? You know what I'm saying?
Sure. But do you really want to put yourself out there as somebody who got duped?
No. I can say, and I think Fran McCaffrey doing it would be even more dangerous because he's part of, they're in the same athletic department. I don't think it reflects well on the university. So I would have to think that they both got duped into doing it. Now, while we're here, I know this is a college football show, Mark, but I might as well share Fran McCaffrey's cameo as well. So sure. This broke shortly after the Bob Stoops cameo.
Hey, Brian, Fran McCaffrey here. I wanted to reach out and let you know that all of us in the Hawkeye family are thinking about you. Your family loves you. Your dad loves you. The Hawkeyes love you. Maybe think about making a move back to New England. But wherever you go, wherever you are, the Hawkeye family will always be with you. Go Hawks. Hey, Brian.
It is. I
wanted to reach out and let you know that all of us in the Hawkeye.
It's about as, cringeworthy, but also just perfect. And you're telling me Fran McCaffrey is no idiot.
Yes.
And so maybe he was duped, but for him to say, perhaps think about moving back to New England.
Yes. See, that's the clincher is, okay, it's bad enough that we're pointing out that you need support because things aren't working well. So we're going to give this kind of veiled smile and you get all the love and support from all of us and the hugs. But then to throw in that one little barb in each one about, you may want to move on.
What's great about Bob Stoops is his little, I don't want to call it his accent, but he's got kind of that Oklahoman accent from being down there, I'm assuming, for so long. And just hearing him talk about it is just brilliant. So in response to the people in the chat earlier who wanted us to talk about the cameo, I guess in the midst of what is a pathetic display of offensive ineptitude, I guess we can giggle about that.
That is hilarious. Huh.
I didn't know you were on Cameo though, Mark. I'm gonna buy a Cameo next time my wife and I have an anniversary, and I'm gonna have you wish us a happy anniversary. Donate to your Cameo.
I can't even remember why I'm on Cameo because I had no idea it existed, and somebody reached out to me and set me up.
You're saying you don't get a ton of requests?
I've done nothing with it. I simply have an account. I didn't
Okay.
even post maybe I posted my pic. I've done nothing with it. And Cameo has actually reached out to me. I don't know how many times to say, we need you to fill out your profile. We need you to do this. We need you to try to stir up some requests. And I'm like, yeah, I forget about it 3 seconds later and keep moving on.
Well, my thought is, why does Bob Stoops need a cameo? Unless it's for charity. Why would he need
Yeah,
he doesn't
maybe it
need
is.
money. It's for charity?
I would hope so. And knowing what kind of guy he is, probably is.
Yeah. No, he's a class act. So I
Yeah.
don't think Brian would I don't think Bob would do that knowingly, because I think he's got a lot of
No.
respect. I could see him being
Yeah.
duped, but the Fran one is pretty egregious.
That's something else. That is really good. All right, everyone. From the Hawkeye of the Storm, get on over there if you're not already, and many of you probably are, but we've got a pretty nice crowd in today for our Hawkeyes live show. So join us again next Tuesday at 4:30 Central after the 50-point effort against Nevada. And yes, I'm going to post a over-under on total yardage against Nevada.
And Mark, just so everybody's aware, this evening, will be the release of week 203 of my podcast, Brad's Branded Thoughts. Ironically enough, I run through like 15 of the top transfer portal quarterbacks from the offseason and run through their stats through 2 games. So if you are tired of me talking about it, I guess don't listen to the show. But if you're interested to know, then you can watch the show. Will be released this evening. And we'll also have an interview this evening on the same show with Iowa men's basketball guard Tony Perkins. Live show, Hawkeye Hangout on my channel tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central Time, post-game after the Nevada game, and then we'll have another post-game, part B of the post-game on Sunday night with Don Patterson. So it'll just be me Saturday, me and Coach Don on Sunday, so tons of content on the way.
And if I could figure out a follow-up to my breakdown of Iowa's offensive ineptness, I would do it. But I don't know that I can produce any other spin on it that's unique to week 2. It was just more of the same.
Yeah, you'll come up with something, Mark. Faith in you.
Next Tuesday, 4:30 Central, folks. See you then.